Hey everyone, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. Before we dive into today's story, quick shout out to my buddy who just launched a YouTube channel called Twisted Truths, all about those jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and deceit. Go check it out. Give them a like and subscribe. Links in the description. Okay, let's get started. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Man, did I learn that the hard way. For as long as I can remember, my motto was simple. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Integrity, that was my North Star. Never lied, never bad-mouthed anyone, always tried to handle things with logic and respect. If I screwed up, I owned it. If I was right, no gloating. That was just me, Tom Walker. So, how the hell did my life implode in the most spectacular fashion despite playing by the rules? Go figure. I was totally blindsided, didn't see it coming. Not even a flicker of a warning sign, if there even were any. Then, bam, everything changed in a heartbeat. I'd just flown back from a tech conference in Chicago, bone-tired but feeling good about the deals I'd closed. Walked into my Upper West Side brownstone, expecting the usual chaos and love from Sarah, my wife, and the kids. Instead, I walked into some kind of bizarre theater. Sarah and the kids were all huddled around our kitchen island, laughing like hyenas, like they were sharing the funniest joke on earth. "What's so hilarious?" I asked, dropping my briefcase by the door. The second those words left my mouth, the air in the room shifted. The laughter died. Sarah locked eyes with me, her face blank, unreadable. Then she nodded towards an empty bar stool. "Tom, why don't you sit down?" It wasn't a question. It was an order. Dumbfounded, I sat. She slid a thick stack of papers across the granite countertop, waving them in the air for a second before slamming them down. "Read these," she said, her voice cold, almost rehearsed, like she'd played the scene out 1,000,000 times in her head. I frowned, picked up the top page. Divorce papers. "And I'm not asking for much," she went on, her voice flat. "Just the brownstone." As if that wasn't enough to knock the wind out of me, she pointed to another set of documents. "Oh, and these are adoption papers. I want Mark to adopt the kids." My breath hitched. "Mark?" Sarah rolled her eyes like I was the slow one. "Yes, Tom, Mark. You know, the guy who's been making me scream while you've been busting your butt at work every single day." My brain short-circuited. 12 years of marriage, 3 kids, a life we built from scratch, just tossed aside like garbage. My son, Dylan, just smirked at me. My daughter, Emily, didn't even look up from her phone. Her TikTok feed was apparently way more interesting than her family imploding. Only my youngest, little Peter, piped up. "Dad, Mark has a huge penthouse overlooking Central Park, and we all really like it," he said cheerfully, like that somehow made this whole nightmare okay. I stared at my so-called family, my mind racing, trying to find some explanation. Maybe Sarah was drunk. Maybe she was having a breakdown. Maybe this was some sick, twisted joke. But no, she was stone-cold sober, completely in control. When I didn't react fast enough, she shrugged, scooped up the papers and tossed them onto the counter. Then she slapped a check in front of me. "Here's your half of the joint account. Take it and get lost." The kids jumped up like they were on cue, grabbing my bags before I could even blink. I finally found my voice. "Sarah, this is my family home. My parents left it to me long before we even met. Your name isn't on any of the deeds. You're not taking my house." Her expression barely flickered. "Fine, we'll go." She turned to the kids. "Pack up. We're going home to Mark." I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. "Who the hell is Mark?" Sarah rolled her eyes again, clearly annoyed. "I already told you. He's the guy who's been nailing me while you were working," she said, like she was discussing the weather forecast. My stomach twisted into knots. I looked at my children, searching for some sign of hesitation, of loyalty, of love. Nothing. Zip. Zilch. Nada. "Dad?" Emily finally spoke, still glued to her phone. "Mark can give us a better life. Mom loves him, and so do we." Her brothers nodded in robotic agreement. Something inside me snapped. The pain, the rage. It was unbearable. But instead of yelling, screaming, losing it, I just stepped aside, motioning towards the front door. "Then go." They grabbed their designer backpacks and filed out, like they were leaving for a weekend trip, not abandoning their father. As Sarah reached for the door handle of the Range Rover, I barked, "Don't touch that car. I paid for it, and it's in my name." She didn't argue. Instead, she and the kids exchanged these smug, sickening grins, flipped me off in perfect unison, and slammed the car doors, and just like that, they were gone. I stood there in the echoing silence of the house, my hands shaking, 12 years gone in the blink of an eye, betrayed by the people I loved most. So I did what any self-respecting, heartbroken New Yorker would do in my situation. I drank, and I drank heavily. Bottle after bottle of expensive scotch until I passed out cold on the cold tile floor next to the laundry machines. For the first time in my life, I felt true, raw hatred, not just for Mark, that smug Wall Street jerk, but for the people I once called my family. They hadn't just left me. They had discarded me like yesterday's trash. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and the bitter taste of regret in my mouth. But through the fog of the hangover, one thing was crystal clear. I knew what I had to do. I found a shock of a lawyer, set up a meeting. He read through the divorce agreement, and after a moment looked up at me, his eyebrows raised. "Tom, I suggest you sign this before she changes her mind. She's not even asking for child support." A hollow laugh escaped my throat. "She doesn't want my money. Mark's got more than enough." So I signed. In a matter of months, the divorce was finalized. My former family never looked back, and neither did I. Instead, I threw myself into my work, buried myself in spreadsheets and balance sheets, went back to NYU at night, earned a master's, then a doctorate. In time, I became Dr. Thomas Walker, a highly sought-after forensic accountant, catering to the city's elite. My life, once in ruins, was rebuilt brick by brick, not for them, but for me. And somewhere along the way, in a crowded bar in the West Village, I met Olivia. A new chapter began. She was everything Sarah wasn't. Real, honest. Olivia had this incredible energy, this infectious laugh, and she actually cared about what I had to say. She was a graphic designer, creative and driven, and she loved our little Brooklyn apartment, making it feel like home. By our 4th year together, my firm had grown so much we needed to expand. Instead of renting bigger office space, I decided to invest in a long-term property. Bought a 5-story building in Tribeca. Olivia and I loved our new headquarters so much, we even had our wedding on the rooftop terrace, overlooking the city skyline. It was small, intimate, just close friends and family. Must have had too much champagne that night because a few months later, Olivia told me she was pregnant. We would have loved more time, just the two of us, but life, as always, had other plans. Soon there would be 3 of us. Over the past 6 years, my life had been on a steady climb. So, needless to say, I was completely blindsided when I was suddenly served with legal papers, demanding double alimony, out of the blue. Sarah, back from the dead, claiming $3,000 a month in child support, plus a whopping $432,000 for missed opportunities. All this while, she'd been living the high life with Mark, her Wall Street sugar daddy. I couldn't help but laugh. 7 years of silence, and the first thing she wanted from me was money. My lawyer, a sharp-witted woman named Ms. Davis, reviewed the papers, and after her own fit of laughter, called Sarah's attorney. What she found out was unsurprising. Sarah was broke, bankrupt, and alone. She'd heard through the grapevine that I'd become successful. Dr. Thomas Walker, the hotshot accountant. It had bruised her ego, reignited her greed. To add salt to the wound, she'd also discovered I was remarried, with 1 kid and another on the way. Meanwhile, her Mr. Moneybags, Mark, had enjoyed every perk of their relationship, except the whole family part. One day he simply vanished, ghosted her. A week later, Sarah was served with divorce papers. Naturally, the freedom-loving Mark refused to pay child support, and through some shady legal maneuvering, he even managed to annul the adoption of Sarah's kids, claiming he'd signed under duress. With her finances in free fall and no wealthy benefactor to lean on, Sarah set her sights on her old, reliable me. But instead of coming to me directly, she went straight for my parents. To my utter dismay, I discovered that my parents had stayed in touch with Sarah since she'd walked out. I could understand their desire to be grandparents, to be part of their grandkids' lives, but the secrecy, the betrayal, that stung. Sarah had played the grieving, remorseful wife, the one who made a terrible mistake, and my parents had bought her act hook, line, and sinker. My father was the first to come knocking, preaching about forgiveness and responsibility. He actually insisted that if he were in my shoes, he'd take Sarah back, restore the family. I reminded him calmly that I had a new family now, that Sarah had betrayed me, that her kids had abandoned me. He brushed off every argument, urging me to man up and fix my marriage, as if Olivia, my actual wife, was some kind of afterthought. For the first time in my life, I lost respect for my father. I walked him to the door, asked him to leave. Next up, my mother, armed with an ultimatum. If I didn't take Sarah back, I would have to move out of the brownstone so they could give it to her and the kids. I couldn't believe my ears. Were these really my parents? Fortunately, my business was booming. So I just bought a new house in Brooklyn, paid cash, and moved out. A week later, I received an eviction notice giving me 30 days to vacate. Didn't object. Coincidentally, the closing on my new place was the very next day. It's amazing how accommodating people become when you show up with a briefcase full of cash. My parents returned to their old house a week later, only to find it empty. Sarah and her brood moved in the next day. I haven't spoken to my parents, Sarah, or her kids in the 2 years since. Meanwhile, Olivia and I were thriving. We now had 4 kids, a beautiful home overlooking Prospect Park, and a flourishing business. This year I was honored as Businessman of the Year by the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. Local newspaper ran a picture of me with my smiling family during the award ceremony. I dedicated my success to Olivia, the woman who had been my rock, my unwavering support. As I spoke, my parents and Sarah barged into the hall. Sarah stormed onto the stage, hamming it up, dramatically accusing me of abandoning my children, fake tears streaming down her face. She declared that Olivia had destroyed our marriage. The audience murmured in shock, surprise. Fortunately, Miss Davis, my lawyer, had anticipated her antics. She pulled a remote control from her pocket and activated a projector at the back of the hall. A video flickered to life on the blank wall. It was a recording of Sarah speaking with her lawyer in a parking garage. The audience watched in stunned silence as Sarah outlined her plan to annul the adoption papers, the ones she'd begged me to sign. She promised her lawyer a hefty bonus if he succeeded. Then she detailed an even more sinister scheme: to have Olivia drugged and assaulted, capturing it all on video to send to me, hoping to destroy my marriage, my life. She even admitted to manipulating my parents, using access to the grandchildren as leverage. The moment the video ended, Sarah's lawyer tried to bolt, only to be stopped by the firm grip of the NYPD chief, who just happened to be in attendance. Several judges in the room had also taken a keen interest in the incriminating footage. I cast a long glance at my devastated parents, then turned to Olivia and our children, helping them with their coats. I led them towards the exit. Outside, under the bright city lights, I kissed my wife, then settled our kids into the SUV. As I climbed into the driver's seat, I heard my parents calling my name. Without looking back, I shut the door and drove my family home. The next time I saw my parents was in court, testifying against Sarah and her sleazy lawyer. When I stepped out of the courtroom, the weight of everything that had happened still hung heavy in the air. My father was waiting for me outside, his face etched with regret. "Tom, I can't express how sorry your mother and I are," he began, his voice pleading. "But please, son, give us a chance to make things right. You have 3 children who miss you, who are suffering without their father. We have 4 grandchildren we've never even met." He swallowed hard, his gaze searching mine for a flicker of forgiveness. "Son, you need to find it in your heart to forgive us and bring everyone together again. The whole family." I met his eyes for a moment, then turned away. I took a few steps towards the exit, but something made me pause. Without turning back, I finally spoke. "I'll think about it." Sarah was sentenced to 3 months in Rikers and 4 years of probation. Her dim-witted lawyer wasn't so lucky. His license was revoked for conspiracy to defraud the justice system and for attempting to deceive me personally. The Department of Child Welfare informed me that if my parents or I didn't take custody of my children from my first marriage, they would be placed in foster care. I relayed the message to my parents, suggesting they were welcome to take in those selfish brats themselves. My father sighed, shaking his head. "Someday, Tom, you're going to have to forgive them all," he said. "Is it really so bad that your mother and I want to be in our grandchildren's lives? We're not getting any younger, son. We won't be here forever." His voice softened. "With your marriage, you just gave up and moved on. But what about us, Tom? Are you really so heartless that you can't see she made a mistake?" I exhaled slowly, my patience wearing thin. "No, Dad, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be in their lives. But I disagree with you. Sarah didn't make a mistake. She made a choice. She was a cold-hearted woman who finally got what was coming to her." I squared my shoulders, met his gaze. As for the kids, they willingly chose this. They ran off to Mark without hesitation, leaving our home without a second thought. "Remember, Dad, you used to tell me that some things in life can't be forgiven. You also warned me that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Have you forgotten your own words? Because I haven't." I let out a humorless chuckle. "And what happened next, Dad?" "You turned your back on me. Mom did too. Sarah lied, deceived, manipulated the kids against me, and you sided with her. That meant you stood against me, Olivia, and our family. Now you want me to act as if none of it ever happened?" I shook my head. "You and Mom made your choice back then, and now you have to live with the consequences, just like Sarah did. That was 10 years ago. In the years that followed, Sarah never learned her lesson. She remarried, tried to pull the same con on her new husband that she'd pulled on me. Only this time, the consequences were far more horrific. A new husband caught Sarah in bed with another man, and he snapped, beyond reason. He tied them both to the bed in their penthouse apartment, doused them in gasoline, and set them on fire. What little remained of Sarah had to be identified through dental records. As for our children, Dylan and Peter followed the path they chose and are now serving hard time in Sing Sing. Emily, on the other hand, before her life could take a similarly dark turn, sought redemption. She showed up at our door in Brooklyn one rainy afternoon, humbled, broken, begging to be part of our family again. Kind-hearted Olivia insisted that Emily had been led astray by her mother's toxic influence, and that we should welcome her, guide her towards a better path. And so we did. Before they passed, my parents finally had the chance to meet our children with Olivia. In their will, they left everything to my discretion, asking me to distribute their belongings fairly among all 7 of their grandchildren. Now, Olivia and I stand at the threshold of a new chapter. Soon, we'll be empty nesters, and when that day comes, I plan to savor every moment with my beloved wife, just the 2 of us, once more. Some of you might think I'm a jerk for not fighting to save my first family, or for walking away from it all, but let me tell you this. Some things just aren't worth fighting for. Thanks for listening. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you in the next video.